Good afternoon, evening, morning, or wherever you're going to be watching this video, or whenever you're going to be watching this video. This is a very long overdue review, or first impressions, but I'm pretty sure it's a review at this point, of the Peacock Blue and the Honey Yellow switches from Everglide. Specifically, these are part of the linear lineup, and I'm going to be testing a few things today in terms of sound, wobbliness, and just overall quality, I guess. Quality is objective, obviously. What I mean by quality is more of like my sort of take on them, because personally, I don't really like these switches, but it's not because of the fact they're bad switches, it's because it's just not to my own preference. However, I will be impartial and just giving you the information as usual, and this usually comes in the form of acrylic sound testing and other stuff like that. But in terms of the switches, let's get right into it. So, Honey Yellows and the Peacock Blues are essentially the same thing, but they're just in different housings, and they do make different noises, obviously, in terms of pitch because of the different types of housings, and the travel distance is the one thing I do not like about these switches, and I'll demonstrate that right now. Normally, if you were to take a standard linear switch, or any just switch in general, so for example, let's take Everglide's own switches. This is a tourmaline blue, and this is their crystal purple, a linear and tactile, respectively. And you might notice that if I were to press down on this, the stem sits pretty flush, right? It doesn't really stick up much at all. It just sits perfectly. Same with their tactile, the crystal purple. You notice that they are just going into the housing, no fuss, no nothing. But when it comes to the Peacock Blues and the Honey Yellows, and I think also they're Moyu Blacks too, but I think those are actually not too much of a fender in this case. But let's take a look at the Honey Yellow and the Peacock Blue at the same time. Notice how when I press down on these, they basically become a speed switch, which I mean that the stems don't bottom out at 4mm. Instead, they bottom out like way earlier. And as you can see, that's a pretty significant amount sticking out of the top housing. And same goes for the Honey Yellow. So if I were to press this, they're basically the same. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't like speed switches. After all, the S80 has Creamiaz switches, in which that it's a cream stem from a broken-in cream switch in the housing of an Aliyah 60 gram with its respective spring, and those don't necessarily, you know, skimp out on the whole bottom out thing either, because in comparison to the Peacock Yellows, or sorry, Peacock Blues and Honey Yellows, this one sits maybe like just where my fingernail ends, like a little bit more, like where the hook is, if you want to leave it that way. But you can really feel the difference when it comes to that. And I feel like for me, my personal preference is that this is a little bit too high when it comes to bottoming out, because it really feels like I should be pressing down more on this switch, but I'm not. And that's the only gripe I have with the Honey Yellows and the Peacock Blues. However, their filmed and switch performances are actually pretty good. I put one of these on a spacebar for one of my friend's builds because he wanted it that way for whatever reason, and the sound is actually really good. So, without any further ado, I'm not going to be pressing it in front of the microphone or anything. I'm just going to go straight to the acrylic test, because honestly, I feel like that's the more important one, because nobody is going to be using a keyboard where you're probably going to be like soldering wires onto the switch so you can input one or two things. That's weird and kind of unreasonable, so I'll be right back.
Alright, let's get this out of the way, and also the microphone should be a lot better now because it wasn't plugged in before and I can't be fucked to record that, so I am going to just roll with it. Anywho, here are the Honey Yellows and Peacock Blues. I take back what I said. I'm actually going to do a really quick before and after comparison with lubed and unlubed, just so you can hear the more intricate mechanics of the switch. But all things considered, these new switches, the Honey Yellows and the Peacock Blues, their tolerances stock are very, very good. The third generation of Everglide switches really seem to be hitting something correct when it comes to smoothness, more than they already have, so props to them. Here's a Honey Yellow, stock. Here's a honey yellow lubed. Here's a peacock blue stock. Here's a peacock blue lubed. So, all things considered, not bad, actually. Smoothness and weight and tolerances, it's really good. I can't dock them for that. But unfortunately, just for me, the bottom out is a little bit too harsh because, well, it's really reduced. Alright, let's get the acrylic out. Okay, this should serve our purposes pretty well. Let me put this away. This is a 9x9 grid that I got off of KP Republic, and I'm just gonna, let's see if I can allocate any switches properly. Okay, so we're gonna use this bottom centerpiece right here, and this should prove to be adequate for our purposes. So I'm just gonna slide it over here, and I'm just going to put a honey yellow stock and then honey yellow lubed. And it shouldn't take too long because I already have these set up. Alright, let's start with the stock performance first. This is a honey yellow, and I'm going to actually switch over so that I can press it underneath the mic, because this one actually might be easier to work with. Alright, here we go. Let's wiggle it a little bit to test tolerances. As you can not hear, it's actually really good when it comes to tolerances. So, props to Everglide for making something that you can use off the bat. Let's listen to a lubed one and see what the differences are. And of course, with the switch film, literally no wobble. Let's put some keycaps on these things. So, back with the stock honey yellow. I'm going to put a PPT F11 keycap onto this thing, and let's see what it sounds like. So with this keycap, you can slightly hear the spring bouncing around a little bit, and perhaps the tiny bit of tolerance issue where you can hear it crackle a little bit, because albeit it's very good, it's not flawless. So it does require a switch film, although I think a 0.125 would even solve the problem, to be honest. Let's listen to a looped one now. Here's a back and forth to compare. Let's go with stock performance first, as always. This is for the Peacock Blues, by the way. Let's check tolerances real quick. There was a very slight bit of wobble in the verticality sense, but otherwise, unless if you're seriously trying to abuse your switches, this is actually also really good stock. I'd say it's better than the Honey Yellows in this regard. Most likely because of the fact that the top housings are, I think, a little bit more tight compared to the Honey Yellows. This is the lubed version now. I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at this post-edit. I'm just like, what the hell is going through my head? And of course, with the switch film, not much problem with the tolerances at all. Let's try the keycap on. This is stock. Okay, not bad actually. Not bad at all. Although I can really feel that bottom mount resistance because of the fact that, you know, the bottom mount is so higher up compared to the standard switch, so as smooth as it is, I can't use it. Let's listen to the Peacock Blues filmed and lubed. Okay, yeah. Higher bottom out so that it doesn't travel as much as it should, I guess, in my preferences. I don't really like them. However, if you do like that, and you do like the extra fast bottom out for whatever reason, and the sound profile a higher, or rather longer stem can bring to the table, like the U4Ts and Holy Pandas and all that, then by all means, hey, be my guest and lube these up, give these a switch film if you really want to, and just use them. They sound good, they feel good in terms of smoothness, and they're not expensive to get a hold of, I don't believe. I think they're around the same price as other Everglides, I think, like $5-6 for 10. I don't know of any Kona sites that sell this. I got these off of Taobao for a second run thanks to Feather, and I can't really direct you other than to the official Taobao shop for Everglide because they're just sort of there, I guess. When it comes to the Water Kings, I would review them, but Theremin Goat actually has a much better review and detailed breakdown in the history of Everglide in general. So I will link that in the description so that you can take a look at what he thinks of the Everglides. Spoiler alert, the Water Kings blew his expectations out of the water, but I'd like you to find out for yourself as to why he thinks that way. Because Theremin Goat has quite the amount of switches, and I'm pretty sure he has a good say as to what constitutes switch quality. So, with that said, I am done. Next up, actually, I might actually just record this straight in the row. I got some Peacock, no, sorry, not Peacock, Bamboo Greens. Bamboo Greens, if these will focus, Bamboo Greens are the tactile version of the Peacock Blues, and I can't wait to try these out, even though I know that the bottom mount is not that to my standards. They're basically the same thing. The tactile bump is interesting, to say the least, so I will be checking that out real quick. But until then, thank you for watching, and I shall catch you next time.